right, my last and final position and setting working as a speech language pathologist brings me to and back to the schools. I know I said I was never going to work in the schools. I was done. Here I am. So never say never, right? Really, my decision to move to the schools after the clinic was driven by my desire to really have that work-life balance. At the time, I had 2 under 2, like craziness. And I decided, I've been trying to find a position, a setting that really honored my work life. I wanted to continue down this path, but also I wanted some life mom balance, right? So the schools kind of spoke to me in that regard. When I was hired, they did count 2 or 3 of my years teaching, so that kind of bumped me up the steps, the lanes, the ladder, I don't know what they call it. And then I quickly did an extra 30 credits beyond my master's, and that also bumped up my pay scale. And again, that will increase every single year. In the end, I am making more money. My salary is greater than it was at the clinic, and now I have summers off. I have spring break, I have the random Monday here and there. So it is a nice balance for that reason. As I said, I'm working in elementary school right now. I am the only speech therapist in the building. I guess I shouldn't say that. We do have an extra 0.3 position that this person comes a day and a half, and they service about 12 kids of mine in my building, I should say. I work very, very closely with special education teachers, classroom teachers, psychologists, social workers, occupational therapists, English language EL teachers, paraprofessionals, and principals, I should say, as well. I, right now, service 61 children. I know. Typically, it's like 55 or so. I feel like this is a big year. We are seeing a lot of additional children that need special ed services in the schools after the pandemic. We have noticed an uptick in that. I see children for speech articulation. I act as the case manager in that area. I will write my own goals. I have my own IEP. I am the case manager for those children who are seeing me only for speech. I do see children that are in the special ed program. I may see them as a related service. I might see these children if their primary disability is autism, let's say. I cannot rule out communication disorders as a secondary diagnosis. It is more of a related diagnosis at the schools. So I do not write my own goals. I will relate to the goals written by the special ed teacher. I do communicate and collaborate with the special ed teacher, and we do write goals together that will foster communication skills. I am also a secondary speech disorder. So if a child has a primary diagnosis and also scores low on 2 language assessments, that tells me that they do have a secondary diagnosis of speech. And I will write my own goals on that IEP in that case. Paperwork, oof, I don't want to scare you, but it's very heavily based in paperwork, heavy meetings in the schools. We do evaluations every 3 years to re-qualify children for services, and I do write IEPs every 1 year, and we have yearly meetings for those IEP meetings. I do report scores and just progress three times per year. One is the IEP, the other 2 count at like conference time, report card times. I will report progress to parents at that time. Meetings. So now do the math. I have 61 kids. If I spend 45 minutes per student in a meeting, which are held before and after school, that's an additional 40-ish hours, 44 hours or more outside of my work day, outside of my allotted time in the school. That's kind of hard. I haven't quite found the right balance with that. What's been nice is that my school does a lot of Google Meets, so I can be in the meeting, but in a Google Meet while I'm driving home or picking up the kids from daycare. It's not my preferred, but it's kind of a happy medium. But that's sort of the gist of the schools. Therapy-wise, now with my 60 kids, I can't see them one-on-one. I would love to, because I feel like that's the best way for therapy, that one-on-one FaceTime therapy. So I try to schedule my students groups of 2, maybe 3, but groups of 2 work for me. I see children Monday through Thursday, and I sort of block off that Friday for evaluations, paperwork, billing, all of that stuff. Our school follows a 3-to-1 model. So I will see students directly for 3 weeks of the month, and we get their 120 minutes in during that time. That last week of the month, I'm spending doing evaluations, following up with teachers, talking to parents or outside services, writing reports, kind of checking in, listening to students to see whether they qualify or would qualify for speech or not. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that happen during that indirect week. Therapy looks like, let's see, we do a lot of language therapy. We do consider dual languages in the schools. We are fortunate in our district, we have a speech therapist who is bilingual. And so she actually will come and do bilingual testing in Spanish, and then we sit down and decide whether it's a language or language, is it a difference or is it a disorder? So that's really been helpful. We do have interpreters available to us in other languages if we need to. I do also, like I said, articulation therapy, fluency in the schools, and then AAC. As far as collaborating, I do collaborate with special ed teachers because I am servicing a lot of the children that are in special ed services. I do collaborate with the OT and ask ideas and bounce things off of them to help my students in speech. Let's see, we do, as a whole team, as I mentioned, like the psychologists, social workers, special ed teachers, we do sit down every other week and we discuss students, whether they're appropriate to move forward in the evaluation process or if they are appropriate for more interventions. So we do sit down and have those child study meetings and determine really where children land, whether they're appropriate or not for special ed. The pros, what I do like about the school, other than summers, is that I get to see my children really in their environment and in their, with friends, with teachers, talking to a variety of people. I don't just get to see them in their little therapy group, their little bubble. I get to see them in the real world. I get to see them communicate and interact with others, and it's fun. It's fun to see them do that. And really, I can kind of monitor and keep track of whether they are implementing strategies that they learn in speech or not. I get to have a little more creativity in my therapy in the schools, and that's been fun. And it's been fun to kind of branch out in that way. The cons, let's see. I was really worried about going to the schools because I was worried I wasn't going to have that relationship with my families. I wasn't going to see them face to face before and after every single session like at the clinic. But that has not been the case. It has taken work. It's taken work on my end really to send a quick email, make a quick phone call, just following up with parents, just little bits here and there. And it has fostered great relationships in the schools. It's just different, but it's been good. It's been surprisingly good. What's been frustrating is the school system in their ability to qualify students. At the clinic, they can qualify with a standard score of 85. In the schools, we need 2 evaluations, language evaluations, to qualify under 70. So that is sort of difficult. Same with articulation, but we just need 1 test under 70. But we have those kids that are kind of in that gray area, but some qualify, some don't, and you just know that they need help, but that's our system in the schools. There is also kind of that hush-hush model in the school of don't tell, because we don't want to recommend services outside of the school for fear that parents will go seek out these services, and then the school district is on the line for paying for these services. So a lot of people don't recommend extra services. If you're like me and you know that there are things that we know that parents don't know, you can politely, gently nudge, suggest in nice ways other than directly recommending these services. I like to say, if it comes up, I might say, some families choose to seek outside services, or you never know, just kind of politely suggest these things without saying, I recommend. And it can be done, and it is beneficial, and it's just the way you present this to parents. Teacher relationships can be kind of tricky. We all have big feelings as to what's best for our students. And a lot of times people are looking through one professional lens and have a hard time seeing things through a different lens. These can be tricky relationships to maneuver. I don't think that it's impossible. And as speech language pathologists, we are really the experts in communication disorders. We know how to have these hard conversations. It can be done, it is done, and in the end, it comes to be a great relationship with these teachers, and we really bind together and work for the greater good of our students and their outcomes. Let's see, I hope all of this has been very helpful and beneficial in helping you decide where you'd like to work, where you don't want to work, and in your next journey as speech language pathologists. Thank you for listening.